May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Could I get a roll call, please?
Yes, you can. It is 6:02 p.m. And roll call. Holly Madrigal
Here.
and Julian Lopez.
Here.
Review Board Member Lamb.
Here.
Review Board Member Herbert.
Here.
And Review Board Member Sanders.
Here.
And for the record, we have planning, Mendocino County Planning and Building Services staff Jesse Waldman, who is presenting and also your executive secretary.
Thank you, Jesse. And was legal notice determined?
Proper notice has been established.
Perfect. Approval of minutes, showing none. And I should mention that this is an amended agenda. There was a slight amendment that was done. Correspondence, we actually did receive some correspondence on items that we'll maybe discuss when we get there.
And if I may, through the chair.
Yeah.
There was a public notice that was published today. The Board of Supervisors meeting on May 20th, 2025. They will be hearing the appeal to the Mendocino Historical Review Board decision that was made on December 2nd of 2024. As regarding the Mendocino Historical Review Board application 2024, number 0009 for the Raymond project located at 45040 Main Street. The notice has been published on site. It's also on the Board of Supervisors Granicus. If you would like to submit comment, I do have a notice here and you can take a snapshot of it. The water tower on Main Street at the Raymond project next to the Kelly House
It was
Pond.
the roof. Got it.
Yeah, that's what I thought was a roof too.
Did the roof,
But
did
it
it
has
get
to be
appealed?
not associated with
The roof above the Narbar? No?
So I will have, staff will have to get back to you.
I
about-
can remember
This is
that
for
being
the-
I
done.
think it got passed.
The appeal got passed, I think, yeah.
Okay,
We got all the
thank you for
things.
that. Report from the chair, having none. Public expression. The board welcomes participation in its board meetings. Comments shall be limited so that everyone may have a chance to be heard. Items of public expression are limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the board which are not on the posted agenda, and items which have not already been considered by the board. The board limits testimony on matters not on the agenda to 3 minutes per person and not more than 10 minutes for a proposed agenda, item on a subsequent agenda. Is there anyone that would like to speak to an item that's not on the agenda today? No. Okay, seeing none. Consent calendar, we have none. So we'll move right along to the public hearing for case number MHRB 2024-0006. This is the Kelly House Museum.
Planners, Waldman for Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. And today we are here in front of you with the Mendocino Historical Review Board application 2024-0006 for the Kelly House Pond. This project was originally brought to the board in November 4th of 2024, where at site visit and at the hearing, the review board requested a landscaping plan or alternatives to the design be brought back to the board for consideration. And on March 25th, 2025, the applicant submitted a landscaping site plan, a pond plan, and plant list as shown in attachments A, B, and C of the memorandum that you have received and that has been noticed and made available to the public. The applicant seeks to implement the following improvements to the pond, which are to, it should say adapt the pan to the changing conditions by following four items. 1, removing the ineffective liner to the extent possible next fall when it is fully exposed as much as possible. Number 2, removing the invasive grasses and plants that now grow in and around the pond. And number 3, filling the denuded ground at the pond edge with native plants that can live in water during winter months and live without it being watered during the dry months. And number 4, planting the area around the pond with with native plants adapted to this climate here on the coast. Also with this memorandum is the original staff report that was presented to you in November. And I would like to just state for the record, the formal request is for the MHRB Review Board permit requesting the after the fact authorization to restore the pond, the Kelly Pond, to original condition. Work includes excavating for installing liner of pond with high density polyethylene, I think I'm saying that word right, polyethylene HDPE, geomembrane for filtration and landscaping. Note, the site is designated as a Category 1 historical resource, and that's the Kelly House, and it serves as a historical library and museum. It was built in 1861, and the pond was established in 1888. The site is addressed at 45007 Albion Street. And within the staff report, staff made recommendations within the staff report that was presented to you in November, where condition 6 clearly requires a coastal development permit be required for the after-the-fact grading, excavation, or filling or combination thereof involving transfer more than 25 cubic yards of material. And this was done, so in 2015, the pond was cleaned out. It was found that they had to do a lot more soil movement than they anticipated, and this MHRB permit is to bring the property into conformance even though the work's already been done. The Kelly House is working on finding a restoration plan that is consistent with the MHRB guidelines as well as the coastal development permit regulations within the Division 3. The applicants will also have to secure building permits or grading permits or grading permit exemptions for the proposed development, including the after-the-fact grading. They have the archaeological findings for the discovery clause that should any archaeological sites or artifacts be discovered during site excavation or construction activities, the property owner shall cease, desist from all further excavation and disturbances within 100 feet of the discovery, and notification of the discovery to the Director of Planning and Building Services, and the Director will coordinate further actions for the protection of the archaeological resources in accordance to Mendocino County Code Section 20.12.090. And so the landscaping plan is in front of you, where the proposal is not to do any further grading or any further land transfer, and it is one step in finding a remedy to getting the necessary permits for the work that was done 10 years ago in 2015. And staff is, in our staff report, those conditions we feel would be consistent with the Mendocino County coastal element, the Town of Mendocino zoning code, and the Mendocino Town Plan. So staff has prepared that recommendation for you guys. Do you guys have any questions?
No, so it seems so, if we approve this landscaping plan, it'll allow them to go to the next step, basically.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, and I shared my frustration that this small nonprofit is trying to be in compliance, and I have concerns about costs of future steps, but that's not out of my scope of control. Is there any questions for Jesse before we see if the applicant wants to add anything?
Okay, I'm available if needed.
Thank you so much. Do the representatives from the Kelly House want to add anything? Or do you? Sure.
Sarah Nathan from the Kelly House. Well, as you read in the plan, when we went back and did some more research, we discovered that basically the Kelly House has been trying to keep water in the pond since the early 80s, right? We found newsletters about how they were working on the pond and photos about how they were working on the pond. So there have been 3 or 4 before the ill-advised liner project. There were 3 or 4 other projects to, shore up the pond, put in pilings on the pond, make the pond a little smaller so it could be easier to fill. And here we are in 2025, still worrying about keeping water in the pond. So we decided, Karen and I and a couple of the advisors we had helping us on this, this is a ridiculous pursuit, trying to keep water in the Kelly House pond, especially nowadays. So why don't we adapt the pond to the changing conditions? And that's what we're proposing to do. The list lays out pretty much what we said we wanted to do, but it did not indicate that this is going to be a somewhat incremental process, because we don't have the resources to do it all at once. And furthermore, it's going to be a little bit of an experimental process to see which plants thrive and which do not. And so this is going to take a while. But we would like to get started as soon as we can. I was a little disappointed that you didn't want to come over and visit. And
Again, you did come before.
you would notice that the GD liner part of it is floating on top of the,
I walk by it every day, so I looked.
the liners are showing, and so we're going to wait until the water level drops to, do a thorough job, but I think we'd like to take a crack at getting the visible part of the liner out as soon as we can. So, my concern, hearing Jesse talk about the next permitting steps, are, do we have to wait for these permitting steps to happen, or can we start in?
If I may through the chair. I would please request that request come to Planning and Building Services about the scope of work, and I would bring that to the Planning and Building Services and Code Enforcement to verify if the removal of the liner could start, to make sure it's exempt from a building permit, or if there is anything that would stop that from happening, so please submit that request.
So wait, you're saying that even removing the liner may require a building permit?
I'm saying to please submit the request to our office, and I will follow up with a response after I touch base with the Director of Planning and Building Services, as well as the Code Enforcement Department, to make sure that if there's any obstructions, that we're not allowing it on top of and creating a further creation of any problems. I will follow up with you tomorrow, Sarah.
So you just want to make sure that there's nothing else.
So that reminds me, back in November, I think you said to me, you should check with your engineer to make sure that removing the liner doesn't alter the stability. And I sent our engineer, who's Sam Pope over in Willits, an email back then, and I have a copy of it. And he basically wrote back and said, and it shouldn't have challenged the stability at all, but you do realize that if you remove the liner, it won't hold water. But of course it doesn't hold water. So I have an email that says that, but I haven't pursued anything anymore. That is to say, I haven't paid him any more money to tell me that removing the liner will alter the stability.
So I think what we'll be doing today is approving the landscaping plan so that it can keep going. And I would just say that I'm hopeful that you can move forward with all speed, but I'm sure it's important to check.
Chair Madigo, if I may, I have a question for, hi. Deirdre Lamb, I'm just wondering, because it was always my understanding that the fire department uses that water as well, or May in case there's some kind of an emergency.
A fire, to be exact.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well-
Okay, so I'm wondering, because at one point, they were filling the tank up. Is there any chance that there's any kind of resource that you can work with the Mendocino Fire Department on this?
Well, that was the idea in the beginning.
Okay.
And they were actually a partner with Kelly House in
I tend to recall that.
raising the money, putting the liner
And
in.
the hardware is there,
All right.
the hardware for them to
The
do.
hardware, yeah, there was a
Still
little
in existence.
hydrant and a pipe and everything.
Yes,
So,
right.
what happened the first winter, the second winter, and, you know, I guess it was air, although some people think it was groundwater. Anyway, either air or groundwater caused the liner to float up, and it broke the pipe that went to the hydrant.
No.
And various other things went wrong, so they took the hydrant out, and unless they have, you know, some sort of big suction hose, they can't use it anymore.
Okay, so the fire department, from what I'm understanding, they don't want any part of it. They backed out and they're just done? They just said, no, we're done?
Well, it broke their heart, but, you know, they're, at this point, you know, after many attempts to talk to the liner manufacturer and the liner installer and about, you know, what could be done, you know, no solutions, no easy, affordable solutions.
Because I did think that was a good idea to have a hydrant and a hose.
Well,
when
you
when they
know,
had it.
Deirdre, this
Yeah.
whole idea, this whole project seemed like a good idea.
Of course it did.
Consequences.
Of course, here we are.
Okay, well, thank you, thank you
So I would also like to echo what Holly said earlier. You know, we're a struggling nonprofit, and in fact, now that we're in the Trump era, we've already lost some funding from some organizations that he's closed off, you know, grant funding.
Yeah.
And so we, you know, we very much like to avoid spending money on this 10 years later that we don't have. So I appreciate your concern.
No, thank you
Yeah.
so much. So would anyone be interested in making a motion?
Oh, wait, public. Everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Is there additional public comment that anyone would like to?
Right, there you go. I love
Sorry,
the
would anyone
comment.
like to make a motion up here?
Yeah, I mean, just as a comment, I think it's a very well thought out plan to solve a very difficult problem. I think it's great.
Thank you.
So, yes, I'll make a motion that we, but the plan actually calls for replacing the liner. Do we have to modify that? Is there look at the original permit, application?
Would Robin?
This is the top.
Look at the original.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the.
You're looking at the amendment, but I did bring the original, just for fun.
For the record, if I may through the chair.
Sure.
So it does say requesting after the fact to restore the Kelly Pond to original condition. Work includes excavation of installing the liner. So what we could do, and I might need a couple minutes to write up a revision of that, and I would want the Kelly House applicant to have input on this, but we could say to remove visible liner instead of installing. So it's difficult because the permit, in the coastal development permit, they're gonna need permission for installing the liner. As well as the board, yes, retroactively. And then they're gonna need the permission to install the liner and then how it needs to be maintained. So instead of revising the request, what we could do, and I might need a couple minutes to write up a draft, unless somebody from the board can come up with a draft condition that says, rather than installing the liner, it's to remove all visible portions of the liner. Because that is what the true landscaping plan that has been presented to you is asking for. The true landscaping plan is to remove any visible liner and to not do any more soil disturbance other than landscaping.
Yeah. So,
So
yeah.
I thought we agreed back in November that, you agreed basically, that it was obviously a bad idea and we don't wanna do it.
Yes.
We shouldn't be asking again to do it.
No,
Okay,
it's
so-
just for untangle the bureaucracy is what I wanna do, so that we can
Right.
move from here to your
But
plan.
they'll be out of compliance if they don't have the approval of the original liner. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, I understand that, I'm just,
So, I think
looking for Jesse's advice as to how do we untangle the bureaucracy so they can go ahead and.
I don't think we can.
Well, untangling it may involve sort of giving permission for this and then removing permission, I don't know. That's
I
what
thought
I'm
that, it sounded like that condition that you just said was fine with the applicant. Do you, the one that you just said about removing visible liner,
You failed.
Um,
Visible fail.
I'm hearing that you would like a minute to do that?
I would love a minute to write up that sentence to make sure that I've crossed all my Ts and dotted all my Is.
that's fine.
And then I would restate it back to you,
Okay,
Okay.
if
I'm-
that's
I'm
okay.
ho- Yes.
Thank
So
you.
we're gonna take a 3-minute break. I know we just started, but we're gonna take a 3-minute break and see if we can do some wordsmithing.
never mind. I'm gonna say something, never mind, I say it. I decided I wanna say it.
No. Okay. Did you have a chance to look at the memorandum that they posted late this afternoon on the website?
You want your own copy?
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Apparently, fruit things are too expensive. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that looks great.
So you're gonna keep them on there, hopefully you can. If you're gonna keep them.
Oh, it doesn't go to the back, yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah,
No,
just
we're
like
we do it
gonna
on the
keep the
computer.
liner that we can't get out.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah,
get
some
out.
of it's covered with gravel
And that
to
will
help,
be-
hope to keep
And
it.
then
Well-
according to your engineer, that will help it stay
I
calm.
just worry. Yeah,
Well,
it
you know.
originally wasn't caught without this line.
Yeah,
Forever.
the permit.
Yes.
Since they did the sewer, it might have disrupted that. flow.
Many things disrupted, including.
Yeah, it was a really
I
interesting.
feel like it is
read.
fairly good.
Yeah.
So,
We don't have
we're
that.
hopeful.
Yeah.
If
We
there
don't
doesn't
have that.
exist,
Or it's
there
never
were
existed
3 other
before.
ponds coming off.
no, I know,
the
broke
same
the pipe
sea.
is what you
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
One
I didn't
is
know.
where they put the bridge with the courthouse so you can get to their
Yeah.
restrooms. And then further down here is walk with taxis.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's actually something.
Doing incrementally, because you never know what plants will take, you know, so maybe you'll have to do
Well, and it's good use that
This is
Yeah.
versions tonight.
Just.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and then the other thing, if you do
As far as.
Where corners.
collaborative projects,
Start somewhere.
Yeah.
for the house,
And so
then
there's
you've
just
got
bunch
to
of
plant
things,
plants
it's
in
construction.
garden area where somebody can actually walk up
Yeah.
and see one. Like there's a silk tassel tree in there already.
That's
Probably
Which
good.
I'm thinking,
Amanda seeing both of it.
They're orange.
Well, it's in
Plastic
good hands,
construction
either way,
sites.
it's not like you're gonna build an apartment building or something. It's nice that it's part of the historic, so
Because they were,
whatever
yeah,
needs
sidewalk
to
work
be
for a long
done,
time, but like
you'll
the
do the
construction
right.
fencing is just.
So when it
As is that little
bubbled
BMW,
up
which
to
is
the
for the
top,
Tucanaw
the first
February,
year,
it's
second
threatening to
year.
throw it away, it's still there.
their first solution was to dump more gravel on top of it. So
It's been there
what's
forever.
under the water is gravel.
Yeah.
So it's your
We're
house,
never
it's so cute.
We already
Match
have,
your,
we already have 3 cars, I don't want any more.
I know.
I'm trying to get rid of them. I need 2.
How we doing?
it's true.
Ready when you
All
guys are.
right, ready.
Hey.
Okay,
So, yes, so we have a motion seeking to add this, amendment.
on the spot planning. Okay. The motion on the table is to add a condition to ultimately allow for the 4 recommendations or requests in the memorandum. So the condition would state this: modify the request to allow for removal of all visible HDPE, that will be written out as high density polyethylene, liners, to include all proposals within memorandum dated May 5th, 2025 as follows. Removing the ugly, ineffective liner to the extent possible next fall when it is exposed. 2, or B, will be condition 9B, removing the invasive grasses and plants that now grow in or around the pond. 9C will say filling the denuded ground on the pond edge with native plants that can live in water during winter months and live without it during the dry months. And 9D, planting the area around the pond with native plants adapted to this climate.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Does that
that's
sound
good.
all right?
Yep.
Sounds good.
So-
I'll second that motion.
Thank you for the second before we vote.
Okay.
I really would like to have the applicant's input on that statement as she's been working on all of this.
So the wording that says in the fall when it's exposed, does that mean we couldn't go at the stuff that's showing right now if we?
Planner Waldman, just to clarify, the Mendocino Historical Review Board permit, if this was proposed, they would be okay if the liner stays until then. There's moving parts to the after the fact part. As stated earlier, please submit an email to our office so that I can touch base with the director and the code enforcement office about the possibility of removing the liner without any building permits.
In this stage.
And to further clarify, hope to not confuse anything, the coastal development permit will need to include the after the fact permission of putting the liner in and the removal with this proposal that you have in front of you. It has to catch both. So the MHRB permit as proposed with this amendment that's on the table is to include the installment of the liner 10 years ago and the proposal to remove portions of the visible liner by fall.
So suggestion, the point was that it says in the fall, why not say, or sooner if possible, and that solves the problem.
This was the request that was submitted to Planning and Building Services.
But you have a statement in there that says, that something about they'll remove the thing in the fall, right? If you just add, or sooner if possible, and that solves the problem.
9E, or
Sooner if possible. And that the possible has got to include all the permits and everything else that
Yeah.
are needed, and everything else. It just says, if we're ready to go, we can go. We don't have to wait till fall. That kind of just hits on that. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, as soon as possible is good.
I guess not. For right now.
So do you feel okay about that?
yes, so there would be, so just to not reread everything,
Yeah.
but condition, so what I hear is a motion on the table to approve the project as written in the staff report with a amendment of adding condition 9, part A, B, C, and D of the memorandum, and 9E, and removal of visible liner sooner than fall or as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have a second on the table. Does that still stand with Julian? Okay, hold on. I have a list. I'm ready, I'm so prepared. Is the applicant in agreement with this?
Sure.
Okay, that was a yes.
Yes.
Okay. Where did I go? Here I am. We're gonna take a vote. Alan Sanders,
Yeah, I propose a
You
motion
motioned
for
it.
yes.
Justine Herbert,
Aye.
Deirdre Lamb,
Aye.
Julian Lopez,
Yes.
and Holly Madrigal.
Yes.
All right, all in favor, and the project is proposed. Our office will send out an action letter to you tomorrow. The project is appealable for the next 10 days, and a permit will not be issued until the appeal period closes. And thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Do
Congratulations.
I need to come by the office with my checkbook again and?
Not at this time.
Okay,
We'll have a chat.
not this time, but next time.
Wishful. You gotta quit where you're at. Okay. So, thank you.
And it's a good plan.
Thank you
I
guys.
appreciate you taking the effort. I think it's
Yeah, I
really
love the
good stuff.
design,
And I
it
realize
really
it's
is
gonna
good,
take a long
whoever made
time.
that design, it's great.
It's gonna take a long time, but,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there'll be wrinkles along the way.
So
Thank you.
we're gonna move on. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this item is the matters for the review board. This was brought up as a discussion of planning guidelines. I just want to say, because this topic has at times been discussed at length, we're gonna try to keep this to 10 minutes, this discussion. And we've received some feedback on this, and so I just wanted to send this over to Planner Waldman so that she can talk about maybe the public correspondence, which we just saw.
There's two public correspondence, right?
There's one.
But,
Or just
there's,
everyone?
so, yeah,
Oh, two, yeah,
there's
two.
Ed O'Brien's thing, and then the news from 2018, I believe, is from Deidre, right? You brought this one?
Uh-huh.
And then Julian brought some things for us to look at as well. So, Tanner, why do you want to sort of set the stage a little bit? Oh, and then a memo. Sure.
Okay, there it is. As posted online, I apologize about the addendum to the agenda. I haven't done the minutes from the last meeting, but I didn't forget the request from the board. There is a memorandum, here it is, that was posted online. It may have been posted this morning or Friday. And it is a memorandum, and I thought it would be interesting to just bring it back. There are board members who may not have been on the board member in March of 2024, but in March of 2024, the review board asked planning staff to bring forward how would the board propose to move the agenda, or move to amend the guidelines. And it was kind of mixed in with the, how do we do an ordinance amendment in those processes. And so I thought that memo that staff prepared in March would be very helpful for any board members that want to know the process if this is allowed. We do have, the other thing I want to add is we have a 10-minute cap that was agreed on by the board last month for this discussion. And so I haven't read the public comments. This is your opportunity for you as a board to have a public discussion together without breaking any brown act.
Let me just summarize this briefly before I'm going to pass it over to Board Member Lopez, because he was initially interested in bringing this up. So the summary of the memorandum basically states that if there's a desire to make significant changes to the guidelines, it's like literally a 9-step process that seems quite designed to discourage, or just that it would be an in-depth process. So I just wanted to summarize the memorandum, and I'm not sure that there's budgetary support for us to take that on. I guess I'll just put it that way.
Where did that come from?
Just in the sense that doing this, like for example, coming up with the local coastal program amendment, things like that. I don't know that MHRB has budgetary access to pay for some of those things. And I don't know if that's by design or, I mean.
So those have to be paid for?
No.
No.
Staff time is paid for to be present at all hearings and all meetings and to review all projects that are applied for to come to the board. In April and in June of last year, the director and the assistant director came to the board talking about budgets for planning and building services. That was one of when we changed the time of the meeting, changed how we do minutes. One of the directions was that if the board would like to have policies or guidelines written up, it would have to come from the board rather than planning and building services staff preparing those memorandums due to us trying to reduce our costs. We've done a very good job at reducing our costs for the Mendocino Historical Review Board. We're trying to stay very diligent on reducing the cost that this board incurs. So, if the board wanted to make a list of areas in the guidelines, the board would have to present something in writing to the Board of Supervisors. You can put that on file with Planning and Building Services for when the time comes to do the ordinance amendments. But having this list of concerns and goals of the review board, having your public input is valuable on how those review board guidelines would be amended when the time comes. Staff is not able to do the paperwork and prepare any written letters. And so I felt that the request last month would be great for the board to have a group discussion of what is the board's goals and is there anything specific that you would like
When does
to...
our 10 minutes start?
So
We haven't started yet.
thank you for that.
So, I apologize, Ms. Phillips.
Yeah.
So you were interested in bringing this forward, so maybe you could.
Yeah, so the guidelines were developed, it actually says written 24 years ago, the current guidelines that we have. That was in 2018, so what are we looking at now?
No, actually
30.
not, but
The guidelines have
A
not
long
been
time ago, let's leave it that way. We don't need to get into
Yeah.
this.
So
except for
basically,
that it was
there's,
in
can I speak?
1997, so that's kind of a big deal, so I thought we were talking about
Well,
this.
but it's a long time ago, so.
So they were written a long time ago, and building products have changed and technologies have come a long way. And I'm a business owner, and I have a window that it needs replacement. And I called the window manufacturer out of Fort Bragg and called him a month ago. And the secretary told me that he's 3 weeks out from scheduling possible appointments to even start to build and then install the windows. I still haven't heard back from him. And on the phone, they said that it was a 3 to 4 month lead time to get a window built and custom built for the building that I own. It just seems like the current guidelines that demand wood only windows. I'm specifically just talking about windows and potentially doors. That it's becoming impractical to maintain the aesthetic that we all desire in this time. And I brought 2 sheets of paper of the company's called Marvin, and they make different styles of windows and door products. This is actually an aluminum, I have it written down here, aluminum clad wood product with aluminum exterior finish and wood finish
We
on the
can't
inside.
discuss specifics right now, that's what it is, we're sort of wasting time on this a little bit.
Why?
Deidre, we're just gonna,
So basically, all I'm trying to say is that I think that that something needs to give, and we have the power to be able to do that. Jesse mentioned that if we are able to draft something up and submit it to the Board of Supervisors, when they amend the county plans, whenever that may be, they don't have a date, and if we have a submission that's agreed upon by us, that they'll weigh the options of amending that, amending the guidelines to include products that we approve
It
could
seems
work
like-
in town.
I don't want to interrupt, but it seems like we, under this protocol,
Mhm.
would submit it to planning, to building, planning and services, planning and building services, administrative review by department, and then they have stakeholder meetings, so they have kind of the town hall and the thing, is that correct? Is that the current protocol?
That is, and we do not have a time set for that, for this specific agenda item.
No, because we're still just,
Yes.
what's the term, I don't know, we're just
It's coming.
Discussing it.
discussing it.
It's coming, I believe, in the next 3 to 5 years, and it is a long and extensive process, so having the input from the public and from the review board is very important.
So what you said, 3 to 5 years, what were you referring to?
When those stakeholder meetings start to.
So that's what I was saying, is that they don't have a set date for when they're gonna amend the county plan. But when they do that, having some sort of drafted letter from the MHRB to submit possible changes to the guidelines, that's where they would reconsider it, and then potentially Ted Williams being on our side, or the other supervisors could potentially submit changes to the guidelines.
Is it a lengthy process as it is now? That, you know, say if you put something through, would it take over a year to work through this process here?
I don't want to go too,
Just not.
yeah.
If,
Thinking,
yes, it is a lengthy process.
so let's get started.
Yeah.
Well,
So I'm just kind of throwing it out there just to kind of get a feeling for what you guys think.
So,
And I'd love to hear it. So if you can just go in order, we can start with you, Alan.
okay, so I think two things. One, let's not be scared about the fact that it's gonna take a long time. Three things, actually, a long time. I mean, if you are gonna run a long race, you're not gonna get the end unless you start, right? So, we need to start. Second thing is, I agree that, we need some public input and comment on this, whatever we propose. The third thing is, I think, if I remember the guidelines, they're focused on the wrong thing. What we really want is we want windows that look like the windows we have today. And I think we've looked in the past at certain alternatives to wood windows, and they don't look like a wood window. So I think the real question is not, is it wood or is it not wood? The real question in my mind is, can you take out a wood window that's historically visible, that looks like this, and put something back in that's made of the same material, and you don't know that you've done it? So those are my 3 points.
Deidre, did you want to add anything?
I do. Yes, okay, so a couple things here. First of all, we don't have any public input because it's not really an agenda item. So to be discussing specifics, this is not the way it's supposed to go. So Ed O'Brien did write a letter, and I'll be quick. Thank you MHRB members for allowing me to address the issue of reviewing and possibly changing the guidelines that are used by MHRB. I was involved in the first set of guidelines, and it was a long community project with lots of divergent viewpoints. There were arguments over specific words like shall versus should, as well as many other important subjects. So what he had relayed to me was it went before the board of the supervisors. They made changes, then it came back. And so when you look at this, there's like a whole long list because we're a federal historic town. And so all this list of things, this all takes time, but I don't think that we can say, hey, I'm gonna look at these windows tonight, and we're gonna vote on which ones we like. It has to be put on the agenda as an item.
That's not what I,
Excuse me, hold on. So just so you know, Deidre,
Yeah.
that is not what we're saying. What we're saying is that we're gonna take some time
Right.
at tonight's meeting, because we have some time to talk about this idea. Should we as a group
Right.
make some suggestions?
Right.
So we're not approving those windows in any form.
Okay, so the reason why I agree. The rules are from 1987, and I agree. The reason I printed this out is in 2018, they had a 4-hour meeting about it, and the public came, and thankfully I was on the board to fix the paint problem, which was a problem back then, but we managed to get an ad hoc paint committee board together and fix that problem. But I think that what has to be done is it has to be, like, we have to look at kind of more than that, because what I had heard from planning on a recent application that we had for Matt Rowland is lot coverage. And I think that more than just windows, I think we all should look into like lot coverage. Like there's other items that I think if we're gonna make changes, we should make some more changes. Like make more than just windows.
Well,
Make
this
lot coverage.
this was a starting point. So I just wanted to get the temperature on it. Whatever we decide to draft up in a letter to the Board of Supervisors can be a number of different things. Kind of like what Ed O'Brien said, you know, input would be fantastic. There's nobody here to give any input other than.
That's because it's not agenda.
But we can put it on the agenda and we can do it. So this is a starting line.
Yeah.
You can't finish a race unless you put your first foot forward.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
That's why I asked, is it a lengthy process? Because if it takes 2 years, it's in our interest to put several items that we want modification in the guidelines.
I 100% agree. And I think it's.
I disagree, because if it takes 2 years, Windows has been a running sore. If it takes 2 years to just get the Windows through, and you add 4 more things, and it now takes 5 years, we're not gonna solve the
Yeah,
problem.
I think we're gonna have a better chance of getting something through if we focus our efforts instead of having like an entire changing of the, instead of 15 items or whatever. Like,
Yeah, don't try and boil don't try and boil the ocean. Just pick something and go after it.
But there are changes afoot, and I agree with Deirdre.
See, I think if we can get 2 or 3 items on the thing,
Sure.
then get them all through at the same time.
Sure, we can consider what we want to write on a letter, but I'm just, if my initial question is, are you guys interested in trying to change some of the guidelines? I mean, remember, they're guidelines. There was concrete that allowed to be put in up on top of a Little Lake street there, and we said it's okay, even though the guidelines say no concrete. So it's obvious that we break the guidelines because we are allowed to
We
vote.
did that across the street on the Roots and Crafts house because they had a little path they wanted to put concrete. And someone was arguing, someone from the board actually at the time, well, we can't do concrete. And I'm like, look across the street,
So-
the community center has a bunch of concrete, so you can make
They
those.
are guidelines.
So-
No.
You can make those,
Yeah.
right,
Right,
I
right.
understand that.
So-
See the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Hold on, you guys. So, in theory, believe it or not, that is 10 minutes. So I'm gonna try to summarize what I've heard, which is that there is a desire to look at the guidelines. One of the things I'm wondering about is that, you know, there are existing guidelines that a board member or board members, we can't have more than 2, could look over and suggest potential changes at this level. People are gonna wanna give feedback if we're saying, okay, this, months down the road, these are some suggestions we're thinking about making, and we could address multiple concerns in the guidelines. And then we could have the public come and share their review, and we could hash it out. I mean, it's a challenging thing to do.
Well, this is how we did the paint committee.
Yeah.
Is Bill Kinzer was the planner at the time, which he was such a great planner, he only lasted a year and got promoted to some big job somewhere else. But he was great. He was just like, yeah, let's go ahead and do this, let's change these paint colors. I can't believe they're charging $900 for a permit, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. So we got 2 board members, it was Ian and I and Bill Kinzer, and then Kelly Grimes and Deborah Lennox and Matt O'Halloran. And so it was an ad hoc committee of these people. So we met twice. We actually met at the planning and building in their little office up there one time. And that's how we were able to get it, rather than just 2 board members meeting, that actually to maybe bring in some experts.
Yeah.
That seemed to work pretty well, and we got it through pretty quickly by doing that. And so just
And how did you guys go about organizing the meetings?
the ad hoc committee, we organized them through Bill Kinzer at the planning. Yes.
So.
Okay,
So later on then.
Yeah, because we are, I know it sounds crazy to wrap this up, but we also
Let
want
me
to.
just re-say one thing. I am opposed to anything other than the one item, because I think it would just take longer, you'll need more people involved, the discussions will go on longer. I think this one is important, it needs to be fixed, and I think dragging other things
I second that.
is not helpful.
Okay.
And that's my opinion, right? I'm not saying everybody has to
Alan, we got
agree
it,
with
we
it.
got it, yes, that is your, we got it.
We can disagree, it's totally
We
different.
can agree to disagree, yeah. No, I mean.
Okay, let's cut it, let's cut it, cut it.
You guys are like,
She's
yes.
got some important things to say.
I don't.
No,
But
Jesse.
we're gonna, yes, Jesse, did you want to comment on the ad hoc aspect?
I would like to comment on two factors.
Okay.
Is that ad hoc requires proper noticing to establish the idea that the board could create an ad hoc has to be properly noticed. So that needs to be on the agenda and noticed everywhere for the public to participate in the ad hoc.
Okay,
And that was done, how the exterior paint ad hoc committee got developed. There are certain protocols for that. I'm learning about ad hoc, but it cannot just be something that is decided today. There has to be proper noticing. So I did not hear that there is an idea to make an ad hoc for the entire guidelines. So that's great. But if somebody wants to make one for one topic or the whole guidelines, there is proper noticing regulations for the Brown Act to establish an ad hoc, and a request can be made to our office. We can facilitate that process. Be glad to do that. The second thing is that allowing the conversation today to happen, I love that people brought information to the meeting, but that information wasn't presented to the public. And if you always bring something to the meeting, it will become a part of the minutes. And so if you brought something to the meeting to present, please give Planning and Building Services a copy of those documents so that they can be part of the record of what you guys were discussing.
Did you submit
Okay.
this to her?
Yeah.
You did, okay, so I didn't.
And it is nice to present it sooner so that it can be noticed, so that all board members can review it before they get to the meeting, so that they can have time to read and process instead of on the spot.
Okay.
Just those two things.
Okay, so I believe that there is interest in moving this forward with the discussion of an ad hoc that we could put creating an ad hoc or not to address some of the concerns in the guidelines. We could put that forward maybe at our next meeting.
So the board the only decision that we could make today on this topic
Is
would
putting
be
that on the
to
agenda.
be something to be considered at the next, it would not be a matters from board, it would be a public hearing item.
That's what I'm asking.
okay.
Yes.
Can I make a request for that? If we are gonna deal with more than one item, that we're very specific about which guidelines we're going after.
So let me just clarify. We're just talking about whether or not we're gonna have an ad hoc. Like
About what? About what?
But the agenda will say it's an ad hoc for this.
Yes, exactly.
So it has to be very specific about what the items are that the ad hoc is going to address. The agenda item that's coming up
To be
has to be-
approved or not.
has to be approved or not, isn't, because somebody may say, I don't want an ad hoc committee working on this, that may be a public comment.
Right.
So we need to be very specific about what we want the ad hoc committee to do, so the public knows what they're going after. That's my point.
If I may through the chair.
Yeah.
I feel that having a clear scope of the sections of the guidelines that the board members are wanting to visit or to remain the same, that if each of the board members wanted to provide those correspondence so that they could be shared with the rest of the board members, and then you guys could bring it back next time as a matters from the board. So is it an ad hoc committee for the whole guidelines, or is it an ad hoc for windows? Is it an ad hoc for?
So you're suggesting that the board agrees on the list before it goes on the agenda as a public hearing item?
Like,
So-
yeah.
So that we know what
Just
the
do
list
windows?
is?
Yeah.
You could, but I sense I'm not I'm the only person that was.
Well, I mean, if,
No, I don't agree with you.
I don't want to inhibit other discussions.
yeah, I mean,
with you or-
but I've already done like the paint, that's one, if you wanna just do the windows.
Can you explain?
Okay,
Fine.
so what I'm hearing from you guys is that you're interested in putting on the agenda an ad hoc to
Yes?
discuss should I say windows and doors?
Well,
I mean,
first-
do you really want to keep it to windows?
Justine just wants us to clarify exactly what an ad hoc is.
Oh, an ad hoc group is a group that can, of board members and potentially people from the public that can do work. If they don't have,
Two
they're
board
not
members.
given, yes, it can't be a majority of the board, but they can work on something like this sort of outside of these meetings. The ad hoc committee they would come up with some recommendations that this board would have to see. So the ad hoc committee doesn't have the power to do anything on their own, but they can sort of do the editing, the work,
Due diligence.
they can do the due diligence.
With
and then-
professionals.
Already required of us.
But with professionals though, so with outside.
Yeah, so let's say for windows, you might want.
Those same professionals come to the meeting.
So
and do a
it's,
presentation
there are
without
times,
ad hoc.
yes, there are times though where an ad hoc committee, it's easier for them to get work done. Because you can see that editing a document, say, with, this many people is challenging. And so the idea is that the ad hoc would get together with some experts, they would come up with some recommendations and bring it to us to vote on.
I'm
Yeah,
still
for
not
instance-
comfortable with that.
If there's a
It's
conference
just-
that,
it's a form of, it's just
you
a
know,
form
say
of
Ishbay
governance.
wants to be on the ad hoc committee, he can say, well, windows can be like this.
Well, this is why we'll put it on the matter for next meeting, whatever it may look like, and then you can decide, you can weigh
Okay.
your
So-
information.
Before
that-
a vote is made, I do believe we should open it up to the public.
Okay, but I'm not yet to the
Thank you.
So, I believe there is some interest in exploring an ad hoc committee. Alan, you're saying that you would like to specify what that focus will be,
So the public knows what we're discussing.
what we're discussing. Julian, what do you envision the focus?
I think
that
I
group to
agree with Alan. Start with one thing,
What is the one thing?
windows, and we can discuss to have the potential of an ad hoc committee focused on
Discuss.
windows. To focus on, to discuss amending the guidelines, the potential of amending the guidelines, building material for windows.
Does that seem clear to you? Because you're gonna put it on the agenda. Okay,
I feel
so-
like
Do we need a vote
but
for
that
that?
would be, yeah, we will, but I'll get the public as well. But I just want to clarify that, so what we're doing is, we would be voting to put it on the future agenda to have that discussion about creating the ad hoc to do it, so you could share your concerns at that point. And this would be focused on materials related to windows. Okay, is there anyone in the public that has any thoughts on this?
You are the public.
It's you.
Do you want to hear my thoughts? or-
Yes.
Love to.
If you'd
Okay.
like, if
If
you
you
would
would go to
like.
the podium and introduce yourself.
You listen to us.
You guys cannot let
I
me
just
run
threw out
this
some
meeting.
thoughts from somebody who just built a home using all new materials.
Do you mind stating your name?
John Kavanaugh, yeah,
Thank you, John.
from Albion. I've heard in the past say that, oh, you can't have wooden windows anymore because there's no old growth redwood, but that's not true. I have a lot of old new wooden windows from Marvin, and you can go out the end of Albion that look great. They're historic, they're double pane, they'll last decades and decades. I don't understand the ad hoc committee because you always have the right to give an exemption. So are you going, well, I don't understand. And I think you just approved vinyl windows or something on the back of.
Mendocino, please.
All right, so that's still in your
They've been
power
there
to
for
do
40
it.
years, yeah.
So what does this say? Is it gonna pre-approve? I don't understand what that is, what that gives you. The other thing is, I agree with Ed, there is a process to look at the guidelines. It does take time, but it's coming. And it's your job to enforce the guidelines, not to have different people on the committee saying, oh, I want this changed, I want this changed. So when two people leave, you have two others come who just want wood, so they have an ad hoc committee. That's not your job. Your job is to enforce the guidelines or grant exemptions. So I don't understand, what this does.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it back up here. I'm going to bet we will have I believe we will have a continued discussion at this next item that will be on the agenda. I think we'll be able to address a number of the questions.
Can we
that were
address the
raised.
gentleman's comment at all?
Yeah, I'd like to address his
His
comment.
comment about, he doesn't understand why we're doing it.
I would like to hold that for the discussion of the ad hoc
Okay,
committee.
that's fine.
Because we're
That's
gonna do it.
That's
we're
fine,
gonna
but I think we
go-
have to, you asked the question, we at some point. we
No,
have to-
just
Yes,
putting
sorry.
stuff out there.
Yeah, and you're totally welcome to have a conversation about it, but I think,
Yeah, you're
we're
right,
gonna-
you're
we're
right.
gonna do
Yeah,
that.
We'll do that when we, somebody might say, why the hell you want this committee? I
so,
mean,
yeah,
impolite way of putting, what you put right on it.
it's a reasonable request. So, would someone like to make a motion to add an item to our next meeting agenda, our next meeting's agenda, to discuss an ad hoc committee to update, or to come up with recommendations for updates to the windows?
I'll propose that.
Okay? Motion
An ad
made.
hoc committee for discussing an update to the guidelines for windows.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I think we're gonna have some differences, so I'm wondering if I could get a roll call, please.
Yes, hold on just one moment. Ad hoc committee with topic to update window guidelines.
To discuss updating, the agenda item is to discuss having an ad hoc committee to review the guidelines for windows. That's the agenda item. The agenda item is to discuss the committee with specific aim of the committee.
For window material.
Window materials. Yes, window materials.
Thank you.
I'm sure it will go on that when we have a discussion, but there we go.
Okay. Apologize for the order of everything. Alan Sanders,
Yes.
Justine Herbert,
Is this a proposal to put on the next meeting that we discuss whether or not an ad hoc?
We hopefully will get a large crowd to be able to
Yes.
talk to
And
It is.
them.
everybody will weigh in on it.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
so
just
I'll
to,
say-
hey, you wanna
Yes.
talk about it? Okay.
And we're gonna have a committee.
Okay, that's a
It
yes.
seems strange.
so what was, for the record, what was your?
Yes.
Yes. Deirdre Lamb,
Yes.
Julian Lopez,
Yes.
and Holly McEvoy.
Yes.
That's 5-0. Unanimous.
Crazy.
Good morning.
I'm gonna go really briefly to matters of the board, and I will adjourn quickly, but, so the June meeting, I will not be here at the June meeting.
I see how you're doing
I'm
this.
out of town.
What
Yes, for it.
What date was the June meeting? Do we know?
The June meeting is the 9th, June 2nd.
It is June 2nd.
And
And you're
then-
vice chair, so you're gonna run the meeting, Alan.
No, I'm not there.
You're not?
No.
Oh, Julian is?
Induct.
Holly,
Huh?
did you finish your statement? You're not present for the.
I am not present for the meeting of June 2nd. And then the meeting, I just want to take the temperature of this group really quickly about there has been times where we have not had a meeting in July, just because many people are on vacation, things like that. Is that your understanding? I just sort of want to see, do we have lots of things on the agenda for July? It will be the 7th.
Can I comment to
Hold
that?
on one second.
I'm sorry, is the question, do we have a lot of things on the agenda in July? I do not know, and I'm not sure I have agenda items for the 2nd, but staff will find this out, and we have our 10-day notice appeal periods, or 10-day noticing of hearings that's required. So if there are just a couple ideas about this, July has oftenly switched off of not having it or getting it a special hearing date due to the holiday which is a Friday, and we need at least 3 board members present for a quorum. So June 7th is a Monday, and that would be our normal hearing date for,
You mean
July
July.
7th. That's our normal hearing date for July. If I don't have 3 board members present at any given meeting, the meeting will be canceled. And also, a meeting would be canceled if there's no projects that are paying, no public items under item number 8 or 9. Actually, under 9 public items.
Deidre, were you going to say something?
I was gonna say, what she said is that in the past, what we've done in July is move the meeting to like the following week.
Okay,
If,
but I'm just saying, if you guys.
if it like
already
falls on
know-
the 4th or
Right.
something.
If you already know that you're gonna be out of town, just let me know so that we can let people know ahead of time, like, we're not gonna have
I have
that.
people coming into town for the 4th, and but I think the meeting should be fine.
Okay, no
We're gonna
other,
meet.
okay,
No,
got it.
something else, or-
I'm staying
Okay.
here, they're coming here.
All right. Thank you for updating me.
Sorry, and I didn't know we were gonna have this about the,
Before we adjourn-
agenda.
Before
Yes.
we adjourn, so matters from staff, again, any supplemental documents you guys want to bring to the hearing, please always email that, so the staff can make that available to all board members appropriately. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a, motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor?
All right.
Sorry, who seconded it? I went too quick. Who seconded
second
it? Okay,
Anyway.
thank you guys.
Thank
All
you.
right.